Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript party. No Rhett this morning. My buddy Rhett did not want to come out of the cage. She did, however, want her. Um, what did she want? She wanted her. For some reason, my external screen just is not working. Let me unplug that, plug it back in. Um, she did want her nut, so I had a walnut that I'd cracked for her, and I went to get her and bring her out. She didn't want to come out. Every once in a while, she's like that. She just doesn't want to. Um, so I didn't force her. So we came up with a great narrative, right? Like the narrative was that we have like this animation concept and we have this animation service and we've taken all our animation code and we sort of isolated. I feel like I even remember saying in the past that, hey, animation is there's no concept of animation in ThreeJS, so it doesn't need its own, it doesn't need to be kind of separated out the way everything else with where we have ST and then three and then we didn't have to do that because animation is its own thing. And it kind of turns out that that's just not true. And I was completely wrong about that. Um, and so we did, but it kind of makes sense that it would be weird. It would be that I'd get that wrong at the beginning because like that was the very first thing in the crate. So we didn't create, read, delete, update. And we kind of like what happened was like just to kind of walk through the sort of things is I hit add viz and then I hit this and then I hit delete, then I hit update. I go, oh, okay, I have update one, and then I come over here and then I delete it, and then I went add viz, and then I go to update. And I'm like, wait a second, what happened? Why is it not one? It was like 14 or something. And so I started like kind of, so that was on the update. We were working through update and all that, and it was just like, oh, okay, there's something wrong with delete. So then we kind of went back to delete. Next thing you know, we're just down 100 different rabbit holes of fixing things that just are obviously wrong. And then some of those things that when we were on delete, it opened up rabbit holes to other things like um, that were part of um, read and delete and I mean and update I mean and create. And so now we're all the way at the very first thing, the very first thing, and that's our create of animations. And so I made a bad choice back then saying that animations doesn't really have a ThreeJS component and all that. So now we have an animation service that has all these, that's just like got all these different concepts all just deeply coupled into each other. And what's really scary is this piece right here, this for each, because in the inside this for each, I have like all kinds of different update property and animation dictionaries and updating three things and cameras and stuff like that. All this stuff is and interacting with the request animation frame and all this stuff's all just baked in to this one set of code. This is clearly not scalable. And we're gonna need a bunch like this is not the only animation I ever want. I'm gonna want to have hundreds of different animations. We cannot jam that all into this for each. Um, logic here. So we have to break it up. And so we did make a first run at it, and it seemed like I won the war of the internal war of the context or of the narrative. I was like, okay, this is the thing. I wrote up a nice. I kind of came up with a nice little narrative of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to fix this, and all that. And then started to try to do it, and just it all got gummed up. So I definitely took a bad first crack at this thing, in my personal opinion, after having a lot of time to think about it. And that's why it's really nice to have these sorts of things in their own branches and break them out like this, because I know I can go back and undo everything, and if I want. But so let's just do a quick evaluation. I think my mistake was I thought that the first thing to break out was the request animation frame stuff, but it looks like that is not the first thing I should break out. I think the first thing I should break out is the three stuff. So there should be a three animation, and this is where my view of the world, which is described an ST, right? So I come up with my own way of how I think the world should work. And there's this ST concept, and this ST concept, or this is how I want to describe things. And so inside of my animation service, I have like basically the main sort of thing is our ST animation or our animation uh, object, right? So we have our ST animation dictionary. We can go to this definition, and it is an ST animation. And so now we have our ST animation concept, and go to go to source definition, I guess. And see, this is how I describe an animation, right? I say, hey, it's an animation, it has an ID, it has this alias type, which is this thing, which is saying, hey, right now I support rotation X, rotation Y, rotation Z on a mesh. And this is how I do it. And so in the future, I'll probably want mesh position X, mesh position Y, mesh position Z, right? So this is how I chose to sort of define how an animation should work. That is just my definition. And um and so but then there's like, okay, that inside of that there's a bit of leakage into this, but inside of that we have sort of how it ties to ThreeJS. And so ThreeJS would know how to go ahead and break something like this up. Probably we would want to have anything that figures out how to traverse this alias 3 path alias type. We'd probably want that in its own set of logic, instead of like the way we have it in this. Like, let me go back. In here, I have this update property for animation, which is like all about basically doing the shim between ST animation and mesh, like, and knowing how to break it up. Um, this really should be in 3, not in just a general animation. And then, but I did think that what I wanted to do was break out the request animation frame stuff, and that ended up not being a good path to go down. So I think that, let's see what all we've changed. Okay, so inside of our package, I think all we did here was add our SRAM. That was to do the request animation frame. See, animation service. So we changed the name. I think that was the right, well, update. Oh, we added the concept of passing in the animation, which I don't know. So before we did not. I think that was a good idea. I don't think we're quite. Oh, what did I change in there? I don't see a change. Update property for animation mesh. Yeah, I don't see what the change was. Maybe I changed ST. No? What did I do? I don't know why it's showing that there was a change. Oh, I got rid of the private. Yeah, that's right, because I wanted to call it from outside. So anyways, I think this was a bad first run. Um, no shame. Like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about or anything like that. It was just like sort of, I thought that the simplest piece to tease out would be the request animation frame stuff. And now in retrospect, I think is the 3 and ST stuff that will be easier. I think the ST stuff, like, it's, to me, it seems like this animation service dictionary, which I think I may have even added as part of this effort. No. So the dictionary that we use seems like that should be in ST animation. It doesn't, so again, I still think that this animation service that's just kind of sitting up here by itself architecturally as its own thing, I think that should go away. That was a bad decision. And in retrospect, we should have an ST animations. An ST animation should have the list of animations and stuff like that. So feels like that's the first thing I want to do is pull off the ST stuff. And then once the ST stuff is pulled out of here, I want to pull the 3 stuff And then once the 3 stuff is pulled out, I want to pull out the request animation stuff out last. I think that's going to be the least. That's probably the most coupled. So I want to. So it probably, yeah. So, anyways, now I do want to kind of point out the fact that I've been absolutely fearless when it comes to creating the cyclic, um, the 0 200 ng cyclic error where thing, because now I know that I can avoid that by just not having the um, by not having two singleton services inject each other. Um, as long as I do that, that problem goes away. So that oh, sorry about that. Oh, man. So, anyways, that is that. So I think what I want to do is, I think what I want to do is I just want to bail. I want to bail from this and just discard all my changes and start from scratch again. And this time, try to create an ST animation service, and which I think that one needs to be a singleton because I think that is the piece that's gonna keep the list of existing animations. So it's always hard to do, but it's best just to just get rid of it all and just start from scratch. So discard all changes. Yes, discard all 6 files. And so that was now we're having a fresh start. So that was basically the equivalence to having a bankruptcy, right? I wrote a bunch of code. Decided I went in a bad direction, and now I want to redo and restart from scratch. And basically, what I want is an animations to show up here and to pull out anything that I can that is specifically ST related, if I can, pull it out into its own ST um, animation service. And it's not going to be easy, I don't think. And we want to absolutely make sure that I don't end up. So this is for root, right? Is this for root? Yeah, this is for root. So it's going to be tricky because, yeah, this is for root. And so does this hold any? So it doesn't seem like it holds any state. So maybe I can get away with private update. Yeah, it feels like the state is completely passed into this thing right now, right? Like we don't have any. Oh no, we have our ST animations dictionary. So we have to move this over. Yeah, this is going to be tricky because we have to move this concept has to move over into our ST service. And then this thing not needs to not be provided in root. And then once that is this is no longer provided in root and this lives in ST animation dictionary, that will be um, that will solve a lot of the problems, I think. I don't know. So let's just try it. All right, so first things first is go into the packages.json and we're gonna close others. Anytime I'm in packages, I try to remember to close others. And then basically we want to create an ST. We want to create a service. So I guess we put an S in there and then ST. I'm kind of copying this one. Animation. And I guess no, animation. So NGGS services. I'll just copy. Where are you? This guy right here. Basically want something along these lines. And then ST, and this is going to be called animations, and ST animation. And then we're going to run this bad boy. SST animation. And I guess it's just kind of weird because, like, I create a bunch of what I guess you would call assets or like things that help me come up to speed, things to help me understand how I've gotten where I'm at and all that. And I don't know how I developed all these like little things. They just developed over time. Okay, did I screw this up? Looks like I screwed this up. Yes, I did. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and can I delete this? Delete. We have just like an empty directory there. Okay, yeah, it's because I missed the entities. ST. Did I ever create anything inside of entities? Okay, so it's services, entities, and then ST. And I guess an animation is in fact an entity. It's like it's a verb kind of, but it's also kind of a noun. An animation is, I guess, yeah, in some ways a noun. All right. Entities, ST animation, ST animation. Let's try that again. What we're hoping for is right next here, at the very top here, we'll have before camera, we'll have our ST animations. Let's see, did that? Yep, there we go. And so very first thing we want. Okay, so it did automatically put it like in for root. Okay, so what I would like to do, and again, this is just purely like narrative at this point. What I would like to do is move this guy over. And that shouldn't be a problem. Let's see, let's go ahead and pull this. Okay, so I have new knowledge. This is the very first time I've ever done this dictionary thing in a brand new class with this new knowledge of how to avoid that cyclic redundancy error thing. And it's going to change sort of the way I approach the problem. And I guess I'm trying to say all these things because I really do think that we're sort of headed to a very big challenging situation where like people who learned how to code the way I learned how to code, like that path doesn't exist anymore. It's like I've taken a path up a mountain and then the path that was behind me that I came up on won't exist. I cannot tell anyone how to get to where I'm at. I can only tell you where I'm at, and we can kind of figure out where you're at and see if somehow we can figure out how to get to the point where people in the future will be able to develop software. Because honestly, everyone I know that is pretty good at this stuff has gray hair like me. And that like I grew up and was in the desert with nothing to do with a VIC-20 computer and a magazine that came once a month that had tens of thousands of lines of code in it and a little brother, and we sat there and typed this shit out and ran our programs. And then slowly but surely things changed and networks started to appear and things like that. And I just happened to be there for all that. Nobody's going to be able to do that in the future. So we've got to figure this out, or or the art of it will be lost. And then, all we'll have is just sort of like all the stuff that's just around that was already built. And, people will be like, oh, set up a WordPress, but we don't know how any of the underlying part works. Um, I definitely see that in CSS. I very rarely run into anybody who understands CSS at all anymore. Um, but anyway, so now I want to take this and I want to bring this into the root of things. And I would like to be able to not have this animation service in the root anymore. That's what I would like. I don't know if it's possible, but that's just what I would like. So basically anything so this thing has to inject my ST animation service so that it can get access to the IDs. But I cannot inject this into that animation service. I mean, it's just a fact. So basically, and this is literally virgin ground for me. I am like making this up as I go. I feel like there's about an 85% chance that what I'm doing right now is going to work. Okay, so we want to bring in our ST animation service. I think that's what it's called. Yep, and it's of type ST animation service. And we want to use the inject function that is provided from the Angular core to get an instance of the singleton that was created only because when the Angular transpiler ran, it came across this for root thing. All right, so that's why it's available. Now, how does something get into this ST animation dictionary? What would be okay? So actually, let's just make sure this stuff works. And I am concerned enough that I actually want to restart the whole thing because I'm a little worried that maybe what I did was wrong. But what I would like to do is remove this, put it into the animation service, the ST animation service, and then everywhere that's trying to read this one actually writes it to that one. And I'm going to make that one public for now. It would be nice to make it private in the future, but for now. Okay, so we are still building. So we're just waiting. And then what I'm hoping, okay, so we'll have that. So the next step, and I don't think I won't have to save it, so it won't affect the build. But once I do this, I could see that it's broken in two places. So 1 and 2. So this is create animation for count. So it seems like it should not be a big deal to, let's just make sure this all works. Okay, it should not be a big deal to now, instead of use this one. And again, I just want to be very clear that it would be way better if that was if it was private than if it's public. So over in the ST animations, but for now, I'm making it like this because I just don't want to go through the mental. Okay, so it's saying that ST animation service does not have. Oh, and that's because it is currently private. Literally just talked all about that. All right, So I want this to be private. I'd rather use a getter and a setter, but um, for the moment, I just don't want um, the mental overhead of trying to kind of think through the getter and setter. It might actually make sense to do it now, though, if this works. Okay. So I don't know. Like, let's just try this out. So everything seems to be fine. It doesn't seem to care. So now, is there a reason for this to be injectable in for root? And I think probably because yeah, I think it probably was. But I think we've already done a pretty good job of breaking it out. And maybe it does make sense to turn this to private, like this get get dictionary. And this probably is not the right way to do this. This is definitely not the right way to do this. And then returns an st animation dictionary. And this needs like a thought. And I don't know why my brain is not functioning properly. And then this does return st animation dictionary. So we'll do this animation service, go back to here. And this is like one of those things where it's just like, let's see, let's make this private now. Where it's like, I don't know exactly what the destination is at this point. I'm kind of like being like a jellyfish. I'm just sort of floating in the direction that it feels like would be the right direction to do this on. And I can't really. Let's see. So what this does is it actually just returns the whole dictionary, which is not ideal. It is not exactly what we want, but um, I think it's a good step in the right direction. And like the first time that, I was working on this, it wasn't like this did not seem like this would be the easier path. Okay. So that's good. So I think we're back on this, and that is now it's private. So we got that. And so basically we've created a getter. Now let's just create a setter. Right, set dictionary. And I don't know if that was the exactly perfect word to use. Um, but this is going to return, I guess, an st animation. And it's going to accept an st animation. And it wouldn't surprise me. Like I mean, I feel like this is the right way to do this, but it would not surprise me at all if, when all is said and done, um, we end up with um, like having to bail again, just like this morning. Like that's not super unusual. Okay, so this thing is, instead of doing this get dictionary, we want to do set dictionary, and we're going to send it this animation. So it also accepts an animation ID. Oh, and this has its own animation. So So I'm going to comment this guy out. And this dot st animation service dot set dictionary, and we're going to send it an animation. And it will return the animation. It's just going to return this back, but I don't care about that right now. And then I don't know why it's not letting me save. Should probably be broken though. And then this is going to be like this dot st animation dictionary, and then it's going to take the st animation dot, and it's going to use the ID, and it's going to set that to st animation. So basically, we've completely isolated this object from this thing. Well, no, not really, because we actually give a direct link, a reference to it. So while it is private, it can still be modified by whoever calls this, because they actually do get a full-blown direct connection. All right. Oh, my animations are not working. They are broken. Oh, I think over here. Okay, this. Oh, okay, so, well, oh, we don't actually set it. This dot st animation service dot set dictionary, and then that's actually a really bad name, animation. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, we're working again. I guess we want to run through these things real quick. So this seems like it's working. All right, so now we're setting the animation. We have the ID, ST animation ID, and everything. It's probably doing too much, and then this name, isn't it? It's actually add to dictionary is what we're actually doing. Let's go over here and change this to add to dictionary. Set dictionary sort of implies that we're building the whole thing over again, like we're actually overriding the existing dictionary. So now I don't really want to get the whole dictionary. I would rather get the ID. I get whatever is in the dictionary. And I literally just thought of that just now. Okay, it's just so it's not like I'm while I'm coding, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do while I'm doing it. So it's important um, to realize that like you just get better at like thinking on your feet if you practice enough. But it takes hours and hours and hours of practice. At least it took me hours and hours and hours of practice. And like I think one of the things that that is sort of a trap that modern developers that are trying to come up run into is you end up doing like a lot of quizzes. Like a lot of young developers love these quizzes that you do, and what happens is you end up um, all the quizzes have right answers, right? Like there's always an answer, but when you're actually coding, there isn't always an answer. As a matter of fact, normally there's not a right answer, and you sort of have to pay your dues by getting things wrong over and over and over again, and then you find all the wrong ways to go to avoid. Not really the other way around. You don't really learn the right way to go. You learn how to avoid the wrong ways. Um, so and these are like just general ideas that I keep trying to come up with, but so this goes to the animation service and it gets that dictionary, but we don't want to get the dictionary. We want to get the ID. Get animation from dictionary. And we're going to get an ST animation ID, and that is a number. And this will return an ST animation. Or possibly undefined. And we just basically want to return dot this dot st animation dictionary dot st. And see, and like I just cannot stress enough like how important it is to like be comfortable with being wrong. Right? Like it's just you've got no choice. If you get too upset about being wrong, it's going to drive you crazy. And this is kind of, it'll be interesting to see how this, I think we're probably going to have to, I don't know what we're going to do. Okay, let's just try it. Dot. The thing I was sort of debating with myself is like dealing with the undefined. See, it's upset because we're saying that this is an array of ST animation. So I'm just going to override it at this point. Const ST animation as an ST animation. Like that's all it can be, is equal to this might come up to bite me in the butt, but it'll be more obvious when that happens as unknown as ST animation. So this is me saying, hey, I know that I said that it can be undefined, but trust me, it won't be. And I don't know if that's going to end up being a mistake, but that's what I'm doing at this point. All right, so let's see if it all works. So it seems to be working. Everything seems to be good. All right, so now we have pulled out all of the state. I don't think there's any other like state in this. So I'm wondering, I don't know. I'm just gonna try this just for fun. Going to get rid of this injectable for root. I have no idea what's gonna happen. Yeah, so it completely broke. Let's see what the error is. I'm just very curious. So it's saying no provider. Yeah, so basically we're trying to inject it from other places right now. And it's very unfortunate because this is another example where like it doesn't really tell us where the problem is. But it's like whoever's trying to use this animation service. So let's, for fun, again, services. Let's just change this to animation services and see where it breaks. And see if it's going to be hard to turn this into like just a regular class instead of a for root class. So it's upset over here. It looks like there's a couple places. Which is a shame. Yeah, so all the layout all the custom component layouts all use animation service. All the renderer uses the animation service as an import. So I don't know. I guess maybe it makes sense to just leave it alone for the moment because like it's probably just going to be gone. So why spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how to make it not for root if it's all going to be gone. All right, so that was good. We got rid of. Oh, okay. So now I think the last piece is. Oh, we did make his private. I don't even think we need this function anymore. This get dictionary. I don't think we want this function anymore. I don't think we want to give full access to the dictionary to anybody. All right, so that's good. Now, and this could all be for naught, right? Like, who knows? I could go step down the path a little farther and everything could just go sideways. Um, I think it is kind of cool though that like nobody is using that dictionary. So that was in fact the easiest way to start this process. All right, so now let's go through update property. So this is going to eventually go into the 3. I don't see anything in here. Animatable objects as because whoever calls this has the animation. So this is very, very clean. It looks like this would be super easy to move over. Right? This is a completely pure function. It doesn't use this anywhere. Oh, gosh. That's just good living right there. So I feel like this update should go into a new 3 service. I guess before we do that, let's go ahead and see this one definitely seems like it goes in a 3. Create animation. You know what? I think that there's a part where we create our ST animation. I think this code right here should go into almost into our ST, right? This is all about the ST. So create an animation. So I'm going to add that. Create animation. Create ST animation. This feels like the right place to do that. Maybe it should be in its own like static class that doesn't care about this the state. So this is state here. Maybe there should be another class that doesn't care about the state that knows how to create an animation. I don't know. I'm just going to put it in here for now. Create ST animation. And when we create an animation, an ST animation, this is what we want to return. And it's like almost like you want like a traditional class, right? Like a ST animation class that does this. But so basically this is our animation. And this is right here. Now, the problem with it is like, should it know how to get its own ID? I feel like maybe it should, but for now, let's not because I guess we risk needing to inject. Well, that should be fine though. Okay, so yeah, I think it should create its own ID. I don't think there's going to be any problem with it creating its own ID. Right? There's no reason This guy shouldn't know how to create an ST animation ID. Now we need to inject our recyclable service. And what I'm going to do, okay, so this needs to return. Okay, so I think it's okay for now. But what we're going to do is take this, let's tab that out a little bit. Let's comment this. Basically, I just want to make sure nothing breaks. And then I want to get my recyclable service. I don't think it's going to be a problem. We do not have the injector. So let's go ahead and get the inject function from the core. Inject. And then, and you didn't used to be able to do that, like say, oh, I'm going to get this from the core. Like I actually watched other people, examples of other people coding, and they were saying those things out loud. And I was just always like, man, how do they do that? How do they know where all these things are? And then I started doing these videos and started trying to say those things out loud. And now I can do it. So we want to take a recyclable sequence service. So I guess we can make it private, recyclable. I think I mentioned yesterday, or maybe the other day before that, like I have a coworker that is really good at knowing exactly when to make things private and when to not make things private. And that didn't used to be a skill that I was impressed with, but then one day I was sort of doing some maintenance on his code and it was so nice. And now I'm like, I need to do this. I need to learn how to make things like know when I should make something private and when I shouldn't. Inject. And see, the thing is like that may be like for a new person who's coming up, that might be like the easiest thing ever for them. And they're just like, how do you not know that? And it's just like, I don't know that because it's just a piece of my knowledge that I never developed. I mean, like, I don't care who you are, there's stuff you don't know. And the problem is that like leadership, like it's so hard because they are like, oh, that guy's a developer god, and then they find out that you don't know something, and then they're just like, ah, he sucks. All right, so now we know how to get this. It looks like there's no problem. We didn't have any redundancy issues. Everything compiled, and we don't have anything like that. So we were able to inject it. I did not think it'd be a problem because I don't inject this into the recyclable service. So as long as I don't inject this into the recyclable service, I should be fine. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so it wants an alias. Okay, so that gets calculated. Okay, so basically what happens, I think, in the calling function is we take a count. So I'm going to take a count. This is kind of like not a great, um, like this is just sort of a hack to be able to, um, just so I could have some randomness so that every um, one of these doesn't have the exact same animation. I just wanted them to be a little bit different. So now it feels like I can just copy all of these. It's weird. Temporal. That is weird. Oh, okay. I made them all infinite. Okay, so I'm going to copy this over and see if this. So this is nice, right? Because this is very, very specifically ST stuff. And okay, so now we're just going to just start doing our imports. These are just interfaces. They're very low risk imports. I mean, they aren't completely risk free. It's possible that you could end up breaking. Okay, what the heck? What is the problem? Hmm. redraw types. Where does redraw types, was that defined in here? Yeah, there it is right there. I wonder what the problem is. That is so weird. I'm very, very confused at what's going on. So let's go up to the top of, let's go to redraw types. There's a place where we import it. Okay, so we required it from interfaces ST, and it comes with a bunch of other stuff, so I'm guessing I have a similar thing up here. Yeah. You really like, once you start getting a bunch of imports like this, you don't really want to have them all on one line, because this is where you get like um, issues with Git conflicts. You really are much better off if these are on different lines, so that when somebody, like if you are importing something into this and somebody else and you guys are working in different parts, you don't have to worry about having a like one of you can put your import at the top and the other one could put it in here or whatever, and you don't end up with a issue. Okay, so that problem went away. So then boom, and then boom. All right, so this is our, so interesting. I guess because I just use that. We don't use this yet. We don't use this yet. All right. So now what I can do this return. Okay, I want this to return the animation. ST animation. Return ST animation. And I want to call this an ST animation. I know it seems weird at this point, but like right now, like the cognitive load on my brain is pretty minimal. Um, but there'll be probably a time in the future where I'm digging around in this code and it's not going to be minimal. So that is why it like makes a lot of sense to um, to add like little extra pieces of information in there. Um, okay, so basically what I'm trying to do is, instead of this, I want to get rid of all of this, or I want to do const st animation is equal to this dot st animation service dot create st animation, and then I want to give it our count, and then I want to use that instead of this dictionary one. I want to add this one to the dictionary, and I want to associate that, and I probably actually want to associate this in the create, not here. I think it makes sense to move that out of here too. ST animation equals this. Great. Okay, so I think all this can go away now. And then we want to return. That's so funny. ST animation dot. It's funny because we kind of keep moving this where it gets this ID from. And then we want to return ST animation. And all of that code goes away. And it looks like we could probably even get rid of whoever's calling this can probably call that instead. Maybe not. We'll see. And the thing is We don't even need to add it to the dictionary here, I don't think. I think we want to add it over there in create. All right, so that's good. All right, so, and I just want to say that, like, if we were still trying that previous, like, if I was desperately committed to my previous effort from yesterday, which I spent a whole freaking hour on that, um, we wouldn't be making the traction that we're making now. Sometimes you just have to know when to just cut bait and move on. Sometimes things just get so, like, you choose a path to go and then you find out that's just not a good path. And it's tough. It just takes a lot of experience. All right, so we actually would rather add this to the dictionary from over there. So I would rather get rid of this one and see if we can add it to the dictionary from the create. Right, so instead of that, it's this dot add to dictionary, and it's st animation. Right, so now we're adding the dictionary when we create it, so that behavior, and we might not even need that anymore. We may not, that add to dictionary may not even be needed to be public anymore. Right, we might be able to say private add to dictionary. And this is nice because that's probably one of the easiest way to determine if you even need it. See, it's like, hey, that didn't even break anything. Um, I want to force a read console.log adding. Okay, so now this time it actually recompiled the stuff. It didn't do a full-blown recompile like as if we rebuilt it from scratch, but I don't think that's a problem. I think it will break. The cyclic thing will break. Most of these bugs will actually, maybe even all the bugs will actually present themselves without restarting. That was not always the case. Okay, so now we also want to associate it. So let's not do this. Let's say, I think it's the exact same code over there. And boom. Boom. Let's look at our F12, make sure we have 2 animations in there. We have our ST animation here. And obviously we must have the other one. Well, we don't necessarily have it in here. Okay, and there's our rotate Y. So this one's rotating along the X-axis. This one's rotating along the Y-axis. Whoo, that's going so much better than yesterday's. Okay, so now the question is okay, so this has been sort of constrained to a single line of code, right? So we have one line of code that's calling one line of code. And basically does the exact same thing. So let's say, let's just change this to A creates. And this should break things, right? I don't know. I guess I hit cap locks. All right. So who is calling this? Who are you? So it's from the, see, and this is so nice. So from our menu component, we're calling this. That's the only place that we're calling it. So, like, this is great because if this works, that means we've completely separated out the whole creation of ST and the and sharing it to dictionaries and all that stuff. We've pulled that completely out of this generic a- animations function. So let's try this. ST animation service colon ST animation service and we're going to use the inject function from core to create it for us. And we're going to hit save. And then, oh yeah, we're still broken because we're using animation service, but we should be using ST animation service. And then I wonder if we even need um, okay, so I just called it create animation. Um, it's going to be really nice if we don't need that in the root anymore. Okay, so it doesn't look like we may not need animation service anymore. I don't know. Let's comment it up. Let's see if we still need it. Okay, so we have definitely made this less. The coupling is, I can sense that the coupling is much, much less. Um, there's a lot less coupling now than there was before. So that makes me very happy. Now, the question is, again, let's just go ahead and try it again and just try to get rid of the for root and see where it breaks. If I remember correctly, it's also in the renderer. And so I would love to go see what that's all about. Yeah, see, it broke. Unfortunately, yeah, we don't get a lot of. This is not a very useful bug. Get or create injectable, create runtime error. Yeah, it's like no provider found for animation service in app component. Okay, so it looks like our app component might do this. So let's go to our components and go to our, I think we have a top component. I thought we had app layout menu. Where the heck is app component? Components. Maybe it's in, maybe, oh, there we go. There's our app component. And so over here, we use our animation service, and we use our animation service to set up like um, the animation drawing loop and stuff like that, right? So request animation frame handler, that kind of stuff. So yeah, for the add button, we had all the stuff about like creating ST stuff, all the stuff about how I defined everything. But in this, it's all about creating things for the animation frame, request animation frame. And so those things were mixed together, which is not ideal. I mean, it was fine. It was totally fine. It was just like all of those sorts of categories just started to blow up and got big for no apparent, I just like underestimated. All right. So let's see what we got in here. So we got rid of this. So this is set position for div component. Am I in the, okay, yeah, I'm in the animation service. So weird. Update visualization layout, viz count 1, visualization layout. If viz count is greater than 0, then we call this function. Okay, so let's go see what this function does. Go to definition. So this checks the hash, and then it goes through all the ST visualizations, and then this updates the entire, I think the whole, um, like I think this is what controls where this goes. versus this one. I think when we were playing around with this, oh, okay, I just wasn't clicking it. I think when we were playing with this, when we commented this out, these all just laid out on top of each other. Which this one feels like it belongs over here in maybe in UI service. I don't know. Just don't even know. Okay. But let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so this is coming to the ST animations. Let ST animations. Okay, so what this does, okay, and this is a problem, right? This is taking all the existing IDs for a given mesh and returning the full-blown animation for it. So it seems like this logic that knows how to convert IDs into ST animations should be in the ST animation service. So let's try that. Let's say right here, we're going to get create a new function in the ST animation service that returns a list and array of ST animations for a given list of IDs. So that's good. Then that's what we'll work on tomorrow. We're going to create a new function that returns that. And so hopefully, because really there's nothing in here that is specific to, like, there's nothing in here that is outside of what ST animations already knows, right? So get animations from dictionary. So instead of this, we're just going to have this whole thing return a single array. And then update price. See, this I think is this update property for animations. This is 3. This should be in 3. So if I can't find other things to do in ST animations, then the next thing will be to create the 3 and start pulling those things. And then, yeah. And then, yeah, we'll just go from there. I don't know exactly all this. This is definitely seems like it's just in the absolute wrong place. This definitely feels like it's in absolutely the wrong place. Yeah, basically, this ended up being sort of a bucket for just anything that even had anything vaguely to do with animations. I just put it in the animation service. And I think that was a mistake. And it's kind of wild to me because generally I don't even think about those sorts of mistakes until we're larger than 1,000 lines of code in a service. Like once a service gets to more than 1,000 lines, I start to get like, oh man, we're doing too much in here. But okay, so it looks like we're not even using this anymore. So let's go ahead and delete that because it is a distraction. Just make sure nothing breaks. And then let me just do this. Let me kill this, restart it, just to make sure that I haven't done anything that is just breaking everything but didn't get caught. Whew. Man, what a mess. I wonder though, I wonder now if at this point, now that I really have a good grip on state issues, if I could implement NGRX in a way where I don't screw it up. Um, I don't know. Anyways, I don't think we're at a good commit point, But I think this is a great next step right here. And I do think it looks like this one is a function that should go, yeah, into ThreeJS. And then I guess I just need to do another scan. It doesn't look like there's anything else that is like that can go into ST update. Yeah, I think everything else is going to have to go other places. So it looks like this one function is it. And then it looks like the next easiest function to tease stuff out of will be in the um, ST, well, will be in the three. So I'll have to create a new three service for animations. And then that's where a lot of stuff will end up getting picked out. And then I think this is going to be so confusing. Um, and I don't, for me at this point, it doesn't even seem like it should be part of animation. But maybe it should. I don't know. All right. So one last thing I wanted to look before I sign off. Animation service. Let's see, I'm just curious. I'm just gonna scroll all the way to the bottom. This is always very important to me. Yeah, so we ended up knocking off 33 lines of code from here. So we're about 15% done completely refactoring this project. Now the thing is it's not linear, right? So like we found the easiest 15%. And I guess it's even a little bit better because this is actually, and then yeah, so probably a little bit more than 15% um is done. And that took a day. So, you know, I think it's very safe to assume that re refactoring this animation service, top level animation service out of existence is going to probably take the whole week next week. Um, as you can see, like, oh, there's like other stuff that we don't need anymore also. So there's a couple more easy wins. Easy wins are just so important. You know, like it's really easy to just beat yourself up and be like, oh, I'm awful. I'm terrible at this and all that. And I'm not like trying to present myself as like the all end all be all of software development. Like I'm definitely not. It just like I can, when you sit me down with other coders that have like 3 or 4 years of experience, they generally like hit walls that they just can't get past, and I don't very often. And the reason is it's just experience, and the way I became experienced doesn't exist anymore. So like I'm just desperately trying to come up with like capture like how things work now so that someone in the future has a chance in, of figuring out how we used to do things back in 2026. Or if somebody's coming up, if you're coming up and this helps you in any way, shape, or form, that's amazing too. Um, because I mean, you young folks are the future. But anyways, that's that. We are down from 200 lines to 160 lines. So we actually did knock off 20%. So, um, and again, there's no real easy. Yeah. So next, yeah. So basically, yeah, these 4 lines are going to become one, and then, um, and so then we'll have. Let's see, what does that do? ST mesh. So it feels like this. we probably should create a function in mesh that knows how to return all the IDs. And then it might even make sense to extend mesh to be able to return the ST animations. Probably not. But let's see this, create animation function for ID. So this whole function needs to go into what the service that we just deleted, the request animation frame service, that is going to know how to do that. So yeah, that's that. It's scary. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.